Hey guys, and welcome back to Steampunks 2.0, new and improved edition. You'll probably notice we have a new set behind us, new graphics, but our same old...
I wouldn't call it a set.
Yeah, look.
I'd more call it a table full of junk.
Look, I mean, there's a PC there, so you guys get the message. This is a PC show, and we were talking about PC game recommendations each week. We're still going to be doing that, but we'd also like to pile on everything that interests us in the PC world, from the topics that are making waves to just the games and things you probably want to know about.
Yeah, so this week saw the release of The Walking Dead, the final season, which is obviously the final season in Telltale's long-running series. Sort of the title that kicked off this new wave of adventure games, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. When Walking Dead Season 1 came out, it kind of portrayed a new way of showing an adventure, and that was a more immersive cinematic experience, which took a lot of agency away from you, but got you way more invested in the characters and the narrative and all the choices and consequences that come with those choices.
It's interesting because, I mean, you and I played a lot of classic point-and-click sort of adventure games in our youth, and there's a lot of differences between that and the Telltale formula, including, I mean, yes, you do lose agency because Telltale likes to take you down the garden path of its story, but at the same time, the choose your own adventure element is something that's quite modern. When we used to play adventure games, and you guys probably as well, back in the 90s, early 2000s, you were being shown a story that they wanted to show you. You didn't really have the opportunity to decide which characters lived or died, or if you wanted your character to be a dick or a hero. They just were what they were. So I think that's an interesting evolution.
Yeah, it was more focused on the puzzles and the kind of the wacky universes that these guys created. So like I played a lot of American-style adventure games, so that's Sierra and LucasArts. You can play a lot of European ones, which are somehow more difficult, I would say.
Yeah, so one of the things we were talking about, and there are very famous examples of this, Gabriel Knight for one, and Longest Journey and Still Life also have great examples. Very difficult puzzles, kind of were landmarks of old school adventure games, and that's so not really a thing with the Telltale formula.
That's right, and so the question is, like, did The Walking Dead kill what the adventure game was? Because adventure games went away for a long time. But it's very easy to forget that Telltale actually started off doing puzzles as well. Like, I'm a Telltale fan from a long way back, starting off when they revised Sam & Max and revived Monkey Island, and they had a focus on puzzles and the puzzling element. But with the success of The Walking Dead, they saw that this could be really great. It could get a lot of sort of people back into adventure games and people who probably didn't play a lot of games in general to sort of be invested in this sort of interactive narrative. And it was really successful for them. You know, you and I both played a ton of Telltale adventure games. I kind of fell off them when Game of Thrones and Tales of the Borderlands started coming in. When they started pulling in these big name franchises like the Universal franchises like Back to the Future and Jurassic Park,
at that time.
They had Minecraft, they had Marvel, they have Batman, they have DC, and now they have a partnership with Netflix, which really suits that kind of model. They've gone in their own completely unique direction. And it's easy to sort of think that, okay, well, this is what adventure games are now. But that's really not the case, is it? Yeah,
I mean, there's still tons of other things around for, you know, fans of classic point-and-click adventures. There's a company that we're both a pretty big fan of called Telltale Games, who just brought out a new game called Unavowed within the last month, and it's pretty fantastic. Works with some new elements that you wouldn't have seen in old point-and-click games, like you build a party that you can take with you, you have several characters, and you choose your own protagonist.
And I guess the big point here is that you can still have an adventure game that focuses on choice and consequence and strong characters like Unavowed does, but still have the puzzling element. Now, Unavowed is, I would personally say, it's a bit easier than the other sort of Wadget Eye games like Resonance, Gemini Rue, Technobabylon, all those kind of really, really great games that you should check out if you like adventure games. You can have the best of both worlds. You can have great stories and characters, and you can have puzzling.
On closer inspection, there is a small crack in the wall here. The hand of the angel, indeed.
I think another really good example of that, and talking about European adventure games, is the Longest Journey series. Now, this started as point and click, moving through the world as you'd expect from any game. I think it came out around 1999. And then it morphed into a 3D adventure game. Still the same strong characters, really fascinating narrative, and the puzzling elements. Although, to be fair, I do think they've been scaled back from the kind of puzzles that would have you sticking around for days on end, just not knowing what to do. But all the threads that were so attractive to fans of the original game were still there for the second game and Dreamfall Chapters, which came out just a couple of years ago. And that leads on to, I think, what the appeal of Telltale adventure games is when you pick up that game, whether you're playing it as an entire series that takes you 10 hours or 2 to 3 hours a month when they come out, you know you're going to get through that experience.
Right.
It's not going to trip you up, and given how many games are coming out now, that's probably something that appeals to people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really frustrating when you hit a roadblock in an adventure game like all the old LucasArts stuff or Thimbleweed Park or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just sort of bounce off it. And Telltale really avoids that,
yeah.
but at the cost of sort of taking away a lot of the exploration elements, a lot of the interactivity, which is fine. And obviously the final season of The Walking Dead brings back some more sort of interactive elements in terms of the combat and what you can do with Clementine. But it's also important not to forget the genre of walking simulators too. So things like Gone Home and obviously games like Firewatch, which the directors of the first season of The Walking Dead went on to create, which is an adventure game style experience that still lets you have the interactive component of player-driven exploration, which can be a huge part in making you feel invested in that character and in that world.
Yeah.
They're not like really hardcore puzzle game sort of elements, but just the mere fact that you dictate where you're going, your own pace, and what you're looking at and what your character is looking at makes that experience your own and kind of makes it feel more than you're just sitting and watching a movie unfold in front of your face.
I think what I like so much about games like Firewatch and Gone Home is that they're really good examples of how the adventure gaming genre is evolving into more interesting places. I mean, it was once upon a time, the reason we had point and click games is because that's what technology allowed. So it's really interesting to see this medium, which I do think is so extraordinarily good at telling stories, moving into these different places. And as we've said, it doesn't mean that the classic styles need to go away.
I also want to give a special shout out to Tacoma, which has an element of sort of interacting with the story that I found super engaging in the fact that you could experience these sort of echoes of stuff that happened in the past and sort of rewind them and like fast forward them and sort of follow different characters as they sort of went through the spaces and sort of see what little stories unfolded in different corners of the spaceship Tacoma.
That's a great game. And speaking of rewinding and also having great characters, Life is Strange is also doing a wonderful job at that. A game that can't believe that they were able to adopt some of the limelight of Telltale really dominating that space when they did, but just showed that they had really interesting stories to tell and just like a real love for their characters, which I think underpins all of these adventure game experiences, no matter what format they're being told in or how long they take or how difficult they are.
And I have to admit, I never really got into the Life is Strange series, but I did play The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, which is free on Steam if you want to check that out. And I was really surprised by the sort of sandbox exploration elements of that game too, because it still had the pick up this item and use it on another item, but still told a story that sort of continued on no matter what you did. So you could spend the time playing with toys as Chris, or you could do like your superhero missions, so you could have objectives as well, or you could just, wander around and sort of pick up little trinkets and sort of explore the world and sort of what the backstory of Chris and his dad were, all without sort of sacrificing the pace of what eventually happens in that overall narrative. So in answer to the question, did The Walking Dead kill adventure games? No, it really didn't. There are still a lot of really great adventure game style experiences that are very different to the Telltale model, so don't think of adventure games as just being an interactive narrative these days. Adventure games can be many different things. It can be like the old school thing, it can be a new thing, it could be a number of different things.
Yeah, but do let us know what kind of adventure games you guys like to play, if indeed you're a fan of adventure games, and what you see the future of adventure games being.
Or tell us why you don't like adventure games.
That's also very valid. And tell us anything you want to see us chat about in the PC realm. What's got you interested? And we'll be back with another episode next week, so leave us your comments.